All right, so welcome everybody. Really excited. I got two people that showed up today, so thank you for that. Sarah and Claudia, you guys, we're going to jump into this session. This session today, like I shared with you, is being recorded. So anybody that needs to view this afterwards, or if you have anybody from your school that would be interested, we're going to have a place where you're going to be able to access all these recordings. But just a little bit about myself. My name is Craig Bennett. I'm actually located in Charleston, South Carolina. Anybody been to Charleston? Anybody?
Yes.
You've been?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I wasn't born here, but I've been here over 20 years, so I do call this home. But I'm excited to be with you. You'll have all my contact information if you want to reach out after this. So we're really excited. This is the first week as we kind of jump into this partnership with Connecticut. And when you think about how we got here, the short story is we are one of the professional learning service providers for Dell. So you can imagine when a school district buys a large number of devices, we don't just throw devices in the classroom. We like to support it with the professional learning that comes alongside it, because we know that's what's going to really help drive the use of those devices. So our company is actually called Advanced Learning Partnerships, and that's who I work for. So that's how we got here today, and how we're going to continue to engage with you over the course of really the next year, probably, as this alliance continues to build. So I do like to share this because people say, well, Advanced Learning Partnerships, what is that? What are you guys? Well, we're a consulting firm, but I really love our values, because when you think about how we work and what we do, we really try to, really do our work around trust, the value of people like yourselves. And of course, as we're in classrooms and we're across the country in schools, there's lots of opportunities that we can take advantage of and that we can share across our travels, if you will. But honestly, if without you guys, we couldn't do it. So that idea of just serving with gratitude, we're really thankful that we get to be in your spaces. Today, it's a virtual space. It'll probably be a virtual space for at least a little bit longer, right? We're used to that now. But that's who we are. And so I always like to share. You can follow us on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, it's a great place to connect and just see all the things that are going to happen, especially as this alliance continues to build. We're probably going to have some cross-pollination with other districts in Connecticut. So that'll be really cool as well. You guys familiar with Zoom? You guys Zooming in Connecticut? Is that your tool of choice?
We use Google Meets and Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, we do both.
All right. So, we always like to throw up kind of what it looks like just for folks that need to navigate. You can imagine if we had a room full of 30, we probably would leverage the chat a little bit, but more than today. But because we just got two folks, just grab the mic, keep your mics on, and we'll jump into this. So here's the answers. I like to start out, just give you the answers right up front. You might have heard of a protocol called square, circle, triangle, right? And the triangle is like the 3 points to remember in that protocol. And so I put these 3 points up here for us today to think about our session. So we're going to talk about the importance of connection and relationships when we talk about our virtual environment, how we make our thinking visible, right? And the power of making our thinking visible. And this idea of more mystery than puzzle. And the story that goes with this, I had a colleague share this with me, that, are you guys puzzle people? Who's a puzzler?
Me.
Puzzles?
I love puzzles.
You
Yeah.
love puzzles? So
yeah.
So I thought this was such a really interesting idea, right? Because I love puzzles too, but what happens when you put a puzzle together? What happens after the puzzle's put together?
Oh, the satisfaction is so good. And you want to jump into another one and maybe a harder one.
Ooh.
Well, that happens to me though.
Yeah, so the way they framed this though, is the difference between a puzzle and a mystery is a puzzle, once you put it together, you've solved it, you've figured it out, it's done, right? Where a mystery kind of continues to go on, you're still curious, and there might actually not be an answer. So how do we shift our thinking, our teaching and learning in the classroom to be a little less puzzle-like, where we can just finish, to be a little bit more like mystery, where you're always curious in our learning. So, look, we're going to explore these 3 ideas. I'm going to show you some tools and things like that to support that. But first, we got to
I
do
don't want to ruin your point, but I want to build a little bit about the puzzle, because for me, my curiosity doesn't end with solving the puzzle. After I solve one puzzle, I want to jump into another one that is harder.
Yeah.
But for me, for example, if the puzzle is too hard, then my curiosity is like, you know what? I'm going to leave this for maybe later, maybe next day, maybe in a week. I mean, not like I want easy ones, but I don't want those that you spend hours and you don't figure out one piece. Those, I don't like them. So that's me.
Yeah, so Claudia, to challenge that just a little bit, or to build on it, what you're describing, I feel like is a mystery, right? Like, you can't get movement on that puzzle because it is so challenging, and you continue to kind of learn around it. If you
lose interest, though. I don't
yeah,
want
you
to
could. You definitely could. One of the good and bad things about a puzzle, I always thought, is you have to take it apart, right? Like at the end, or you have to glue it together and figure out what to do with it next, right? So look, let's play around with some words. Context is really important, and to frame our thinking around what is synchronous learning, we can't do synchronous without understanding both asynchronous. And those 2 words have been flying around like crazy for the last year. This is actually lifted off of Caitlin Tucker's site. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Caitlin Tucker. Great resource to use. She's got all kinds of really tangible templates and things to use, especially in a blended environment or a virtual environment. But I like this kind of parallel if you kind of look at these. And I've highlighted some text here for us just to think about, when you think about synchronous learning, we've got synchronous learning happening right now. Right? We've got same time and in the same place. Well, technically we're not in the same place, but we're in the same virtual place, right? There was a time for us to meet today, so we had to meet at 4 o'clock, and that's where we are, or I guess it's 3 o'clock up there, no? So we had so we had a specific time that we had to meet. And then, when you think about this, students may have some control over their pace in learning. So you could imagine if I gave you the slide deck right now, in some cases, you might be able to navigate and move at your own pace, depending on how it's set up. Unfortunately, today I've set it up that it's going to be facilitated by me for the 50-minute session. And then the other idea that I love is this idea of just access to me as a facilitator or a teacher. But you also have the peer support. So Claudia and Sarah, you're able to support each other throughout this session. One way to do that, that I also like to share, is this idea of just how do we stay engaged throughout today's session. So today, I'm going to try to not do all the talking, but in a 50-minute session, it's really hard to, especially since we don't have some of the norms and rules of engagement, if you will. We might have some different levels of engagement. And this is Philip Schlechty's kind of levels of engagement, if you look at this one. And so the question that we do, have you ever seen these? I don't want to read them all to you if you've ever seen these. Let me make this a little bit bigger, sorry.
Thanks.
There we go. How's that? Is that a little bit better? You can see it?
Yeah, better. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So, when you look at these levels of engagement, you can start in a couple places. If you start in the top left within the word engagement, you have high attention and high commitment, right? And then if you look at the other side where you have diverted attention, bottom right, and no commitment. So it's really talking about how your kids are engaging with the time. So just looking at this, you see the question up here, right? There's no secrets. So a year 1 teacher, Claudia, how long have you been in the profession?
Well, I started in 2014 as a paraprofessional, and I got certification in 2018. So I have been in the field since 2014, but as a teacher since 2018. Yeah.
Yeah. So where are your kids spending their time? Where do you think they're spending, this is an honest conversation, right? Where do you feel like your kids are when you think about levels of engagement in the classroom?
All over the
So
place.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, the majority of my students, because we've been fully in person with a remote option since pretty much the beginning of the school year.
Okay.
But the past 3 weeks, two for the whole school, but for the past 3 weeks for my kids, we've been fully remote because of cases.
Okay.
So in the beginning, they were pretty much like a good amount of the kids were probably at like strategic compliance, maybe like 3 or 4 at engagement. And then it's gone down from there. Like now, I would say I've got a few at like ritual compliance where they're kind of paying attention, but they don't do any of the work.
Mhm.
Um, I have a handful where they're there, but they don't respond. They're kind of like, they're just doing their own thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, or students, but I do have a few who are at engagement still, and those are the kids who they've been remote since the beginning of the school year, a few of them, and those who are at engagement are also those who want to achieve like have higher achievement in school as well.
Yeah.
And they do higher level learner. So those who have more difficulty with learning or have a lot going on, they're at the lower side of it. So ritual compliance or retreatism or even rebellion. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think you brought up a lot of interesting points, right? Like where kids were, right? You talked about a little bit how kids at the beginning of the year came, they were face to face. You probably did some of that relationship building, and that relationship
Mhm.
building got you to a certain point, right? And in some cases now, we're kind of moving. Remember that triangle, right? You've got that first piece of relationships going on, and then we've kind of moved to, well, how do we show some of our thinking and how do we show some of our commitment? So we're going to move through from slide to slide of how we
Yeah.
kind of do that.
Maybe I have a different experience because I have children from kindergarten to fifth grade,
Sure.
from different classes, and I see it all. I see the student that has been remote all the time and is at rebellion, or is there not engaged, doesn't want to do anything, they not no attention. On the left side,
Yeah.
I have those students that since the beginning and still doing the same thing. Doesn't matter if you go in there, I mean, if you remotely go to their computers and tell them, go here, we use Go Guard.
Yes.
So I go, now click here, now click what it says red. And you do all the work for them. And the next day, same thing. They don't want to do it. They refuse to do it. I mean, you have all the cases, and you have those that they were by themselves. You don't need to do anything. Just check on them once in a while, and they are just happy doing anything they can do online. So yeah, that's my experience too.
Yeah. Well, no, thanks for that share. I think it makes us, think about like, well, this is a great time of the year just to kind of reflect on some of the things that you have done that worked, things that you're doing that are continuing to engage kids. But then you also think about, those kids that you just said that have either dropped off, and really think about how we might bring them either back online in some cases, right? Back to that engagement place that they were, or if they never were, if the commitment just wasn't there, what might we lift out of today that might just be something you take and try? Making thinking visible is a great option, along with this curious, making things a mystery, more of a mystery than a puzzle. So we just started with this idea of inspire, and how we might inspire connection. So before I jump into these two ideas, I just want to see if you're familiar with these two applications. So the top one is Google Slides. You guys have seen that? Okay, so Google
Mm-hmm.
Slides is pretty familiar. What about Jamboard? You guys messed with Jamboard at all? So those two are
Yeah.
familiar. You guys are good with that.
Yeah.
So, so one of the ideas that we want to share here with connection and relationships is how do we build those connections and relationships through an application like this. So what I've done is I've put up some examples of what a collaborative slide deck looks like. So before I go into this and open this up, this kind of Pandora's box, this next click that I do here, tell me a little bit about your experience with collaborative slide decks. Have you guys done that at all this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I use Jamboard, I use it more as like a whiteboard for myself.
Okay.
So I have the kids go onto it, and I use GoGuardian to make sure that their, desktop is actually on it. And I use it so that way I can write on it and they see their workbooks.
Yeah.
So mainly for math, I do slides for language arts. But we've also used Nearpod,
Mhm.
which is also another like collaborative um, app for the kids to use. And that one, it's, it's you can find things that are already made, so that way it's a little
Sure.
bit more convenient for all different lessons. But yeah, for Jamboard, I've mainly used it more as like a whiteboard type style, so the kids can't edit it.
Oh
It's more
yeah.
for me.
So this is wide open. So I want to share. I've
Yeah.
kind of clicked over to a different, and this is an example of what I've done with a class where we've used different thinking protocols, thinking routine protocols. And this first one's called a See, Think, Wonder protocol, right? So I asked the class, I want you to look at this image that I'm going to share on my screen. I'm not going to do it right now. But what I gave them was a place to work. So every kid actually has access to this, right? And then each kid could click in and create their own space. So you can see Jamie has his own box and Adam had his own box. And they could actually do this protocol. So they were given an image, they saw the image, and then they used this. What's nice about this from a teaching and learning standpoint is that I can go through and I can see everybody working at the same time. So I could peek in almost like a Go Guardian, if you will. And what I love about slides is you have this option up here in view where you can look at a grid view. I don't know if you've ever done this, but in slides, if you use grid view, now I can see everything that's happening in my class. So kids, when we talk about how they can navigate on their own, they might be working down here in the 3 ways protocol, and I can see which group is kind of, and I can go right to that group and see what they're doing, and I can work from that. So this is just a quick slide deck. What I've done is I've created the protocols and the templates for the kids to work. And then when they drop in, they just have to work inside of those spaces. But yes, every kid has the ability to edit that slide deck. So that gets a little dicey. You have to teach them how to do that, but it is definitely possible. So I'll pause there. Reactions to what you see here.
I like it. Yeah, I was using Jamboard with the sticky notes,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to use that to, like, for example, I work with vocabulary in English. I work with my English learners, so sometimes it's trying to like if we're talking about winter, tell me words about winter, so they have to post the sticky note with a word that they know relate to winter, like snowman.
Yeah.
What So that's the kind of things that I do. But I like this one because you can see them all working in their own kind of independent piece,
Yep.
and knowing just one big sharing board.
So let me show you. So this one is, obviously it depends on how you set it up. I've used thinking protocols. So the kids would know what the protocol is. They're just collecting their learning, if you will, or making their thinking visible in these slides. Check out the Jamboard though. So this is a Jamboard. I'm actually going to let you guys play along right now. So check this out. I'm going to drop this in the chat. See if we can make this work live. This is way more fun when you talk about engagement, right? So in the chat, I put a Jamboard. See if you guys can get in there. If you're in, I want you to go ahead and add a text box and put your name, just like I did. Here's my name, Craig. Just go ahead and add a text box and put your name in there, Sarah and Claudia.
Okay.
Sarah's in, 100 points. Claudia, you're in, 100 points. Gold stars. So check how this works, right? So you could imagine if all of your kids jumped in and had their names in here. So right now you have 2 Post-it notes. They're split. Are you a digital newcomer? Are you a digital native? Move your name to where you feel like you are.
I think I'm gonna put mine right over here, where I'm not really digital native, but
Yep.
I'm more towards that side than a digital newcomer.
Perfect. Claudia's got hers at the bottom. There it goes. There's Claudia. She's found it. All right. So we've got some digital natives. So you could imagine, right? Because now as a facilitator, I can take these Post-it notes and I can move these around and I can say, are you a Connecticut transplant? Or I think I had born and raised. I'm going to be right in the middle because I am neither one of those.
Can I ask you something? What do you mean Connecticut transplant?
Meaning you are not born here. You were not born there. You came from
there wasn't.
So I really like this idea. I was nervous about, my students kind of taking advantage of having the ability to change things. I like this idea. It's it's more engaging.
Yeah, so you could imagine, right, if this was a part of what we did every morning in some cases, or just as a starter, I could change these from day to day. My names would already be in there, right? And so then the kids can just move. They can actually vote as they go throughout a presentation. They could do it during a lesson, and you are in control of the Post-its to actually put those question Q&A, if you will, and just constantly be moving those Post-its around. Then the next step is to have the kids create those, right? So that the kids have that opportunity to put the choices there, because then they're getting feedback from their own peers, which is building those connections and those relationships in a virtual space. So that's just a cool 2 quick little ideas. A collaborative slide deck where everybody can see everybody's thinking and learning, but also we can do something like this that's a little bit more of a give and take engagement strategy. How'd that feel?
Cool.
That's good.
All right.
Yeah.
Claudia, you've got your hand up. You need something, or you want me to keep going?
Oh, no, I was going to say before and I forgot to put my hand down.
No, you're okay. That's that. I was in a kindergarten class where I had a whole bunch of kindergartners like this the whole time. They were holding their hand up like this. I said, you guys can click the little button. Then it was everybody's hand up the whole time.
It's hard to teach them that, though. It is hard.
Yeah. So, you guys already made some connections. We put some questions up here for you to think about. But Sarah, you already made some connections to how that translates to your classroom. And you already mentioned that was pretty engaging. So there you go.
Yeah, because a lot of the time it's like I feel like I'm lecturing the kids, and they're not really, they're not participating, or they're just sitting there. So this is good.
One of the strategies is not necessarily in here, and it's something that a teacher shared with me recently. She calls it a 10-2 strategy. And I actually looked it up. A 10-2 is just really simple. 10 minutes you, 2 minutes them, and you try to keep that going. So you could imagine if you did some type of lecture or some direct instruction, you could do 10 minutes, but put yourself on a timer so that you then spend 2 minutes doing something like what you saw right there. Just forces you to stop and give them that 2 minutes to do something strategic in a way. But it forces you to plan something for those 2 minutes.
Yep.
10-2, quick,
Yeah, it's
easy
kind
one.
of like a brain break
Yeah, a little brain break.
almost.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
this next one around design is about how we make our thinking visible. And you saw a strategy that I did where I actually used the slide deck there. So we had the protocol, we had the template, and then kids could make their thinking visible inside of those slides. Another way to do that is with Padlet. Are you familiar with Padlet at all? You guys?
Yep.
Not so much. I've heard of it, but
Yeah. So let
I
me.
used it to keep my students organized in what I used it when we were all remote when during the quarantine.
Mhm.
I'm not using it during the school year, but I did it.
So I'm just going to drop this one in the chat. You guys can play along at home. I love Padlet because it gives students a lot of opportunity. There's nothing that a kid could create that they can't actually put in a Padlet. So the way this one is set up is, I'm getting you to react to a quote, and you see these 3 quotes here on the left-hand side of the screen. If you want to react to that in any way, you have the plus button below those quotes where you could add your thinking to the space. So instead of me reading them to you, I'm giving you a choice. You don't have to do all 3, but I'm making your thinking visible by giving you a space to put that. So if you want to play along, you're welcome to, right? But the other one, which is, I think, more fun, is just images in general, right? And so you see I've given you 3 images here. And what's cool about Padlet is you can click on the image and it'll make it really big, which is awesome. So here's a little girl standing on a car. Looks like there's something on fire in the background. And so you could imagine if I ask some questions of what you notice in the picture, right? So I give every kid a voice in this space to allow them to add something, a thought, an idea.
is Padlet something that is it free for educators or
Yeah, so
do
I think what they do, they give you what they call boards. This is a board, and I think you get 5 or 10 boards for free.
Yeah, I think it's just 5 or 6, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, and so once you use the board, you could delete it and then you could have another
a new
board.
one, but then you lose all that work. Yeah, because that happened to me.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it too, what's nice, Sarah, is over here on the right-hand side, you also have an add column. So if you think of it from a portfolio standpoint, you could imagine you could have just keep building onto that, where you would almost have
continue?
all the artifacts or shared their thinking, made their
Yeah.
thinking visible. So this is just a quick idea that I wanted to share with you, a way for kids, and I'll show you this because this is where I think making our thinking visible, we sometimes get locked up on. So when we ask a kid virtually to respond, it's either orally or typing, right? A lot of times. And when we do that, we don't typically give kids enough time to process. Even adults need time to process. But if we wanted to give them something to create, how do they share that with us? Well, they could take a picture of it, which is really cool. That's an easy one. But when I click right here, look at all of the different things that they can do. They can
I,
draw, they can add their voice, they can do a video, they can add any kind of link that would link them to anything that they've worked on or created. And so when you really think about it, I could do a science experiment in my kitchen, record a video of it in Padlet, and I could share it here, right? So it's really a nice one-stop shop for making our learning visible.
And is so the other kids see what like everyone puts on there?
Yeah, it's a good question, Sarah. There, of course, are bells and whistles from a teacher side that you can lock down any post and you would have to approve it, if you will.
Okay.
I'm
That's
more
good.
of a play offense than defense kind of teacher, if you will. I like to set the protocols and the expectations up front because I don't want to have to manage all that stuff from the back end, right? I want to spend our time learning and thinking together versus managing behaviors, if
Mhm.
you will. So it does take some time. But you could imagine if we had a protocol like the elaboration game, that's what's on the slide here. One kid might build on another's idea, right? That's what the elaboration game is about. And so we've linked down here at the bottom, you'll see on the slide, elaboration game. So all these ideas that I'm sharing with you, you have access to when I give you the link to the slide deck, okay?
One thing that I don't know is, can you identify who wrote the comment? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't remember.
yeah, in the tools, I don't have it set up right now just because I work with a lot of people, but you can have it where it makes them put their name in. So if you used it in the school district, it would require a name for them to sign in and
Because
use.
you're always afraid that they're gonna make inappropriate comments, and then like,
Yeah,
wow.
there's a profanity filter and things like that that you can switch on.
Okay.
It's pretty
Oh,
good. But again, I like to set those parameters because if kids can't handle tools like this, then we just don't use them. Just that,
yeah.
right?
Okay. Yep.
Um, but I think kids want tools like this. They want to share, they want feedback. But kids are kids. We all did that in school, right? We just wanted to try just a little bit to see what would happen. So we've
Push
got
the
to give.
buttons.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's keep moving. So this is like a great one. This is another fun one to do. How do we make our thinking visible? So if I showed an image like this, I love this. You guys have probably seen this image before.
I think
For a
so.
fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb the tree.
I feel that's how my English learners feel taking a test, and the special ed students. And
So a See, Think, Wonder protocol with this might look like something like this. Now, this is just a Google Doc, right? I've shared it with the whole class, so anybody has access to it, but I've given a small table down here at the bottom. And so you guys can play along. I'm just going to drop the link in the chat. And you notice how what I'm doing is I'm just kind of throttling the engagement here, right? So instead of giving you everything up front, when I want you to have access and I want you to jump in, I'm using the chat to communicate those kind of next steps or those actions. So what do you see in the picture? You could jump in. Yep, we got an anonymous walrus playing along. So you could jump in and you could say, what do you see? I see, you can put anything there. What does it make you think? And what do you wonder? Yeah, and you can jump down walrus. You can come all the way into your own space if you want. There you go. We got an anonymous fox in there. And again, you can imagine with fourth graders, with third graders, kids could find their own cell so they're not typing over each other. And from a teaching and learning standpoint, I can look in and you could imagine I could see actually kids' names, Sarah, right? Because kids would be signed into Google.
Yeah.
So I would see their name and who's where, and I could use their thinking because it's visible now to really build on and facilitate a conversation around their thinking. And all this is a Google Doc shared out with a protocol.
Again, I was always nervous about students like collaborating on something or having being able to edit the same thing. But it's good to try. I definitely want to try it, especially if
yeah,
since we being remote. So
Yeah, and look, Sarah, you know, one of the greatest tips I ever got playing with a new strategy or a new tool, I use the word play on purpose. You got to play with it a little bit, right? So instead of trying to put new content inside a new tool or a new strategy, sometimes you might just revisit some ideas that they already feel comfortable with as a review, especially at this point of the year. Might maybe not do new content with them, but review something else so that they can kind of feel comfortable trying the tool and not get caught up in the learning per se.
because even like with the Google documents I've made it so it's like make a copy for each student.
Yep.
But even with this, like they can easily access the Google document or
Yeah.
Google slide on board. So
Well, and for me, I don't know about you, but I want everything to be in one place. Because if I have every kid with their own copies, the only way I can see what they're working on is by jumping in, and they each should actually either, if it's in Google Classroom, I might be able to go and peek my head in. But if it's not in Classroom, they're going to have to share it with me back. And now I've got 30 documents. In your case, Claudia, you got a whole bunch of grades. So you're going to have multiple. I just want to see their thinking right now, and how they're engaging in the topic that we're working towards. So let's keep moving. I'm keeping my eye on time. It's getting close. So I don't want to feel like we have to hurry, but I know Claudia's got to go at 5, and Sarah, I want to value your time as well. So, we put in the same questions, right? It's like, how do you think about engagement? Think about Schletke's levels of engagement. You had a little commitment there. The walrus kind of got in that cell and started typing some ideas, right? You had a little bit of engagement. We saw the anonymous fox come in there as well. Let me ask you real quick. I don't know who was who, right? But once you saw someone else jump into a cell, did you feel like you had a little more commitment because you saw others working in that space?
Yeah, you feel like it. Yeah. You feel the pressure a little bit. Like,
yeah.
okay, say something.
Sure.
And you construct on
Also,
others' idea,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be good, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of less afraid to try it.
Yeah. So I love this, like, right? I mean, if there's anything that we take from today, it's like, how do we stay curious? Because if we stay curious, we're going to keep learning. We're going to keep asking questions. And here's a lot. This is a lot on the screen, right? But one way that you might think, if you're using Zoom in your virtual environments, are some of the tools inside of Zoom. One of them is the annotate tool, right? And you can open this up to kids where they can actually stamp. They can use a stamp to make a choice. Have you ever done that with your kids, where the kids can use a stamp?
No.
Yeah, so let's just try it. So in your toolbar, your Zoom toolbar, you should have the ability to annotate. You have that?
Well, I'm not in my computer. I'm in my iPad, so I really don't see it.
Would it be under chat?
It wouldn't be under chat. It should just be, if you go to your more settings, the 3 dots maybe.
Yeah, no, I don't have meeting settings.
Could it be because you're sharing the screen, maybe? I have a settings thing now.
Let me make sure that you guys have, because it also might be an update. Disable. No,
this is on Zoom.
Yeah, it's a Zoom tool. So in your Zoom toolbar at the bottom, you should have the ability next to share. There should be, or in the more option, there should be.
Oh, I can in the share button? No.
No, it should be another. It's like a pen tool. It just says annotate. And it might just be a version of Zoom that you have where it hasn't updated. But I can show you what it looks like. We don't need to get bogged down. But the way to do it is, once I click stamp, and I'll show you what happens, is that I can pick a star, and then you can see these little stars. You see these little stars showing up on this first one?
Yeah, cool.
So the kids could actually vote where they wanted to spend time. So I'm giving them a little choice right now, right? So if I gave you this kind of thinking, and you guys can just tell me out loud as we think about our time, synchronous learning activities, look at these right here and see if there's any that get your attention, something that you're interested in trying to do with your kids.
Yeah, that one.
The differentiate instruction for small groups, because I still, while being remote, I haven't figured out a good way to do small groups. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so differentiate small groups. So you could imagine that I've given kids a vote or a choice, right? And so as I move to this next slide, whoops, let me get rid of this.
I love that.
Here we go. So now what I would do, and we don't have time to do it today, but now what I would do, Sarah, is I would send you off to differentiated instruction for small groups, and I would actually give you the task of going in and learning more about that topic, right? I might give you some resources. This might be the place where you're going to give them some content the non-negotiable content that you need them to understand. But they might have some exploratory, some research that they have to go and do. And then we use another thinking protocol called headlines, where they're going to take all of that information that they learned and synthesize it down to a newspaper clipping, a headline that gives them the best way to jump into differentiated instruction for small groups. So you see, I just gave them a couple of tasks. So you imagine in small groups, Sarah, what would happen right now is I would set up breakout rooms. I would have 8 breakout rooms, and kids would move to the breakout room. I'd probably put a number with those boxes. So if you were interested in community relationships, you go to room 1. If you were interested in interactive modeling, you go to group 2. And so now I've created those small groups. And so now I can move through those small groups. The task is the same, but the topic is different. So now we have kids with like-minded ideas, sharing and working and collaborating in the same space, while I can move from a facilitator standpoint into those spaces and help those kids. Mm-hmm. That's a quick one, just on the fly, if you will. Mm-hmm. But Claudia, here's the analogy to more mystery than puzzle, right? So you can imagine I could give you a worksheet on every one of these topics, and you could solve the puzzle. Yeah. Or I could give you a task where it's like, I want you to go discover what it is about differentiated instruction in small. Mm-hmm. Yes, there's probably going to be some content, non-negotiable stuff, standard related, that workbooks, textbooks, things that they're going to have to use. But what might they do if they could go a step further? Keeping the mystery versus the puzzle.
Yep.
So the last piece of the puzzle for us today, because we are going to say it's done, right? But hopefully we've sparked enough curiosity to jump into. It sounded like Sarah was going to do a couple more sessions, and hopefully Sarah will have the opportunity, and Claudia as well, to work with your school on a much regular basis, if you will, as we continue.
Yeah.
So what do we do? You know, kids always say, why does this matter? Why do we learn this? What does it matter? So why does this matter today? Why do you think the last 40 minutes or so matter? I'll just give you the floor to share.
Well, you know, as educators, we're always learning. And, you know, I think remote and being, whether it's the whole group or part of the group, I think it's going to still be a big thing. And you can use these instructional activities even for kids, even if we're all in school as well. Yeah. So they're very useful for all situations.
That's a great connection.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing. We can still, even if we don't continue with this remote learning, which I don't think so, I think something is going to change. But if we don't, we can still using this in the classroom. And it's and we know children love technology. They are always curious about technology and they love it. So I think it's great. And the tools are, I mean, what you showed us here is amazing. It's very simple, but very engaging. And then, I mean, it has to be somebody to show you how to see this to figure that out, because it's simple, but yeah, well, I like it.
And look, I mean, I think the beauty of two things of what you guys said that I connected to, right? We have a lot of tools. If we get really good at the tools we use, then our kids can get good at them and they can dig deeper into the learning and not get lost in the tool per se, right? So Google Slides and Jamboard, you guys are already familiar with, but it's the strategies that we put inside of those tools that really lift out the thinking and the learning. So thinking protocols are huge. There's the Harvard School of Education, there's Project Zero. You might want to write that one down if there's anything to jot down. Project Zero has a thinking routine toolbox, and it breaks down all kinds of ways for kids, like a see, think, wonder, and those protocols really help kids understand how to navigate these different spaces that you might create for them. The other thing that you guys said that I really connect to and resonates with me is this is not just a virtual synchronous thing, right? This is what the session was called. But when you look at these ideas up here that are on the screen right now, I think you guys would agree, these are things that we would want happening no matter if kids are virtual. We want these types of experiences in our classrooms. So, you know, I heard you guys say that, and that puts a smile on my face, because that's what teaching and learning is all about. So thank you guys for that. So look, this is where I get to promote whoever else. I don't know. The only other session that I'm doing, I'll promote what I'm doing, if that's okay. I'm doing performance task. So if you guys are interested in performance task, I'm doing one of those sessions in April. And I think there's another one in March. I'm not really sure. But on this slide deck, here is all of the registration links. So if you don't have that brochure. Okay?
I signed up for all of them.
Oh, nice. So here they all are in their glory. You guys can click on them, register. I'm going to give you the link right now. The way we keep making sure that these sessions are engaging as possible is you to give us some feedback. So okay. I will real quick, if you don't mind, just drop this one last link. I'm going to drop two links. I'm going to give you the slide deck, and I'm going to give you this, which is just a quick survey to say, hey, I came. This is what I learned. And if you guys could make it better, this is what I think would make that better. So that's what that is.
Okay.
Sarah and Claudia, if you're on Twitter, we'd love to, you know, part of amplifying this work and getting the word out is to share your experience or something that you took away from today. And you guys have had some great takeaways. I might have to steal some of those and tweet them out later.
Good.
But look, that's all I got. We got it right in 4:58. It is time. Claudia said she had to go. Sarah, we went over just a few minutes.
Yes, that's okay. No, this was
Thank
really great.
I'm leaving.
So here's what I'm going to do.
Bye, guys.
Claudia, before you leave, let me give you the slide deck. Here's the slide deck. You can just make a copy of it. Let me get out of this real quick. Sorry.
I did it with the survey.
We actually, our principal, that's how we were able to get onto here and register it. Okay. Oh, this slide deck. I call that a slideshow.
yeah, I call it a slide deck. Yeah, I was just going to give you all the slides that I just did today. So if you want to do anything with it, you're welcome to.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
There you go. There it is. There's all the answers.
That's great.
And then I'm just going to stop recording. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Got it.